Let's talk some Ole Miss recruiting. Is Lane Kiffin got a signature win on Saturday night over LSU, 19-24, and it was rocking in Oxford. A pivotal SEC game, a huge SEC win. We're going to talk with Sam Spiegelman about how this win impacted Ole Miss recruiting. But before we do that, guys, do me a favor, hit subscribe to the Rivals Recruits channel. This is an exciting time for Ole Miss fans, and we are going to be talking Ole Miss recruiting all season long, so jump on board and hit subscribe. All right, let's bring in national analyst Sam Spiegelman, and we're going to talk flip targets. We're going to talk some top 2027 recruits on campus, but let's talk about Keegan Croucher, a top 10 quarterback in the 27 class, and right now, 5 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the 27 class are already committed, so Keegan Croucher is on the clock, essentially. The QB dominoes are falling. What are you hearing about Keegan Croucher's visit to Ole Miss?
Yeah, he had a chance to catch up with our colleague Steve Wilfong, and this was a game day visit that really moved the needle for Keegan Croucher. Like you said, a lot of the top 2027 quarterbacks are slowly coming off the board. We're seeing commitments week in and week out, especially as these visits go on. They go deeper into their recruitment. Here's what you need to know about Keegan Croucher. Penn State is one of the top contenders in the mix here, and he was not in State College for the whiteout game. Instead, he was in Oxford, and he raved about that visit to Steve Wilfong. I think Ole Miss has immense staying power in this recruitment. You look at the play of Ole Miss's backup quarterback is making plays and beating a ranked LSU team at home. Quarterbacks in particular, about all positions, love Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr.'s offense. Keegan Croucher there with his family, with his older brother in town. I think the SEC Southern hospitality certainly rubbed off on the blue chip passer.
Yeah, what a time to make your first visit to Oxford, Mississippi for this one. So he undoubtedly is going to have a game to remember. If he never makes it back to Ole Miss, that will be one that he definitely remembers when it's time to make his decision. All right, so we could potentially see another quarterback, Kavian Bryant, coming off the board in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So, I mean, essentially, this is commit season for these 2027 QBs, right?
We're seeing it across the country. We already know Pop Houston committed to LSU and
Yeah.
explored all of his final options leading into that decision earlier this month. We're seeing it time and time again. Kavian Bryant is flirting with a decision we're hearing close to Halloween. He just made a visit to Colorado, which followed visits to Florida State, to Texas Tech. He'll be at SMU next weekend. More in this NIL era where they're signing contracts to lock in their commitments. We're seeing quarterbacks rush to the table. If they're already leaning in that direction, they're going to lock in their spot or they're going to do their homework like Keegan Croucher, like Kavian Bryant are doing right now, making these pivotal game day visits. And then when it's official visit time in the summer, they'll be recruiting the class around them.
Flip targets on campus included Dorian Barney, committed to Michigan. Micah Champ-Smith, committed to UCLA. T-Rod Richardson, committed to Oklahoma. Dylan Berryman, committed to Texas. And I want to ask you about Berryman. He's from Louisiana, so neighboring state. Is this one that Ole Miss might be able to pick off? Texas does have a loaded D-line class headlined by James J.J. Johnson. So is Berryman somebody that was at this game that we're looking at that maybe Ole Miss has a real shot at flipping?
If you would have asked me this a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I probably would have shrugged you off, Josh, and said, no, don't worry about it. But this was his second visit to Oxford in the last 3 weekends. Listen, he's been back to Austin a few times. Everything he's saying on the record is that his commitment to Texas is locked in. However, like you said, Texas has a boatload of blue chip defensive linemen that they're still recruiting and trying to hold on to their commitments. This is a moving subject that we're watching. Dylan Berryman has a fantastic relationship with Randall Joyner, Ole Miss's D-line coach, and their DC, Pete Golding, of course, is from Louisiana and has poached a ton of talent from the boot over the last half decade or so on Lane Kiffin's staff. I was told, again, not to pay attention. He is not a flip target leading into this weekend, but since those whispers have quieted down, and he is someone that we're paying attention to as the season goes on.
All right. We'll keep tracking that one. Now, one of the top pass catchers in the 2027 class, Easton Royal, was there. He's the number 2 ranked wide receiver in America. You were able to catch up with him. What was his experience like?
Yeah, Ole Miss is not going anywhere in this recruitment. First of all, the assistant director of player personnel, Jeremy Singleton, is a Brother Martin High School alum where Easton Royal currently attends. Patrick Carter, Easton has called one of the strongest relationships in his recruitment. He was last year when he was in Oxford, it was for the win over Georgia. This year, it's for the win over LSU. There's something about when Easton Royal goes to the Grove, big things happen for the Rebels. That showed on offense. He said from the moment he stepped foot on campus, Lane Kiffin and that staff, those staffers that I just mentioned, were shadowing him, giving him the red carpet treatment in Oxford. Listen, LSU is involved here, Florida State, Texas, Ohio State, but I think after this visit, you can lock in a spot for Ole Miss at the final table with Easton Royal, the number 2 receiver in the 2027 class.
Yeah. Sam, you got a good pulse on recruiting. Does it feel like Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss have some real momentum right now on the trail? I mean, here's why. Not only did they get a big win, right, but there's some job openings, either open or coming open. And Lane Kiffin's name gets thrown around, but I think for maybe the first time in his tenure at Ole Miss, I think a lot of people are saying, hey, it makes more sense for Lane Kiffin to stay where he's at.
Well, we've seen the kind of roster he's been able to assemble in Oxford since he got there, not only from the high school recruiting ranks, keeping some of the best players in Mississippi in state, but also hitting the transfer portal as hard as Ole Miss has. He gets mentioned for these top jobs because he's an excellent coach. He's a fantastic recruiter. And what we saw this week leading up to on TV, the programs about how Ole Miss and Oxford has really saved Lane Kiffin. He's going to get mentioned for a lot of big time jobs. I think it's going to be really hard to pluck him out of Oxford, given the support and foundation he's built there. And kids want to come play for him. Top quarterbacks and offensive players want to come play for him. He's the flip wizard once it gets to this part of the calendar year. And I think this year, with this signature win in September, they might be doing things that they haven't done on the field in some time. And that will only help as they recruit these blue chippers in 2026 and on to 2027.
Absolutely. Ole Miss fans, talk to us. Let us know. Were you I want to talk to the Ole Miss fans that were in the stadium Saturday night for this win. How does it feel waking up Sunday morning a winner? Let us know. Comment section below.